My name's Rob Hack. My company's Insight Interasia. I'm representing the Hawaii Pacific Export Council today, HPEC. We're a nonprofit here locally, training small companies on how to export. We have a grant from DBET to put on these seminars all year. And with that grant, it comes from DBET over here, Jamie Lum. I'd like to ask her to come up and make a few comments about DBET.
Stand behind you because of the mic. Aloha, good morning, everyone. As Rob said, I'm Jamie Lum, and I'm with the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. And we are recipients on behalf of the state of Hawaii of a grant called the State Trade Expansion Program grant from the U.S. Small Business Administration. So we administer it on behalf of the state of Hawaii, along with our partners like HPEC and the Small Business Development Centers and a number of other agencies. The purpose of the STEP program and the HiSTEP program is to help companies that are looking to expand their businesses to consider exporting. If you're new to export, it's a way to explore the possibilities. If you are already exporting, hopefully there are ways that you can expand either in a particular market you're already in or into other markets. But that's the whole point of the overall program from the national level, is to increase U.S. exports. So that's the purpose of the grant. And with those funds, we've put together kind of a comprehensive program that has several components. The first is to offer export readiness training, of which this seminar is part of that. And that is to help companies, again, look at all the different sort of topics and things you need to consider in your exporting plans. It's to help you to put together plans, and we've worked in working with HPEC and SBDC. In addition to the seminars that are offered, they have also been helping companies through counseling and mentoring put together your export plan. So hopefully, once you get through that phase and you put an export development plan together, then you can move into the other elements of our HiSTEP, which include our Hawaii pavilions, where we've designated certain trade shows where we go and we buy space, and then we recruit companies, Hawaii companies, to come in and we exhibit as one whole group under the brand of Hawaii. We have several of those on the calendar, and the other component is our financial assistance. Unfortunately, for 2017, the funds are already distributed, but the purpose of that is to help you implement the various aspects of your export development plan. That's what the intent of that part of the program. So I encourage you to go to our website, Invest.Hawaii.Gov. Under the exporting tab, you can find out more about the HiSTEP program. That's where you probably went to register for this seminar. Please see the calendar of the remaining seminars for the months to come. We also have several trade shows coming up. You may have gotten some of those emails that are going out. We're recruiting for the Tokyo Gift Show, which is in September. If you haven't applied yet and you're thinking about it, please put in your application. It is a large show. It is probably the most popular show, if I can use that word, popular show. And so we are taking those applications. We're also doing the outdoor retailer at the end of July. If your product or service fits into that space of outdoor activities. We also have the biotech coming up in June. So those are just some of the events that we have coming up. So again, if you go to Invest.Hawaii.Gov, and you can see what we have under our HiSTEP program. Thank you, and I'll be around if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you mentioned TIGS, the Tokyo International Gift Show, because I think there's a bunch of people here who will be interested in that show later. Nina, do you go to that? Yeah, you go. I think Angie goes. Sarah, do you go to that?
Not yet.
And I know you're definitely planning on going, right? So we'll have an event here in August that just goes over Tokyo International Gift Show, how to exchange, very basic stuff like how to exchange business cards, how to have a booth, how to use a translator or not, Little simple things like that. Some cultural topics we'll get involved in too. So look for that. Off the top of my head, I think that meeting's August 18th, but I'm sure, as you can tell, there's not very much on the top of my head. So I probably have that date wrong. But look on the website that Jamie just pointed out, and Invest.Hawaii.Gov, and you'll find it there. Okay. Also, I've drafted 2 guinea pigs today, which I am thrilled to have them here. And the only reason I asked them to be guinea pigs is because I know them and we can talk about their companies and the products that they're trying to sell. If Nina was here a little earlier, I probably would have drafted her to be a guinea pig too. But all we're doing, and I thank them a lot, all I'd like to do is go through this exercise with them on pricing, things like that. And I passed out some paper earlier so that I hope you will also go through this and we'll work on pricing together for your products and services internationally. It's different. And I want you to think about some of these marketing topics today, different than the way you sell now in Hawaii or even sell to the mainland, or potentially you're exporting already, but I'd like you to think about some of these topics. Okay, very briefly, again, my name is Rob Hack. My day job is I work for a company called Insight Inter-Asia, which is really just a sales and marketing company throughout Asia. Most people in Hawaii are interested in Japan, which is natural, and we have a lot of sales in Japan. Our company, we're basically sales agents, but we operate throughout Asia. What we do is traditional hit the bricks sales and marketing in various Asian countries, going out, knocking on doors, visiting customers, selling products, doing marketing activity. I put this up here because I think it's really interesting because the rest of you can have the same problem. I hear a lot of people complaining, oh, we're just on this little small island out here in the middle of the Pacific. It's very hard for us to export. But look at all these people you have access to. I think people in Hawaii don't really think about that, right? You're one flight away from almost every place over here, and there's millions of people in these cities, right? To the West Coast, no problem. Now, the only weakness I've ever found is from Europe, right? Maybe you can agree with that. We're a long way from Europe. If you ever go to Europe or come back from Europe, it's a heck of a trip, right? The time change is almost exactly opposite. So to me, that's potentially one weakness of companies we have here in Hawaii from a marketing standpoint. But the strength is here. And really, you're only 5 hours or 6 hours behind them, minus a day, right? So it's pretty easy to talk to people in Asia in the afternoon here. So I don't like to hear people complaining that we're feeling sorry for ourselves stuck on this little island out in the middle of the Pacific. We have great weather, but we can't sell anything anywhere else. I don't believe that. Okay, what is marketing? This is the definition of marketing from the American Marketing Association, but I like this one down here on the bottom better. A company has 2 functions only. It makes things and it sells things. Half of the activity of your company should be selling whatever it is you make, whether it's a good or a service. Please remember that. All the other functions like finance and accounting, engineering, all of those things are sort of support functions to either making it or selling it. Marketing in Asia. Key point, a lot of people make this mistake. Asia is not one big market. Look at all of these different countries, right? Very, very different. A lot of Americans will start to think, oh, hey, we'd like to sell to Asia. What does that mean? I want to sell to Europe. I want to sell to South America. All those countries are quite different, but even more so in Asia. One neighboring country in Asia compared to the next is so much more different than they are in Europe, right? It's very complicated. So please keep this in mind. And what I advise my clients is pick one of these markets here. Pick China, pick Japan, pick Korea, pick the Philippines, pick Indonesia. It depends on your product or service, but pick one and then go at it. And go at it hard and give it all your energy. And then you have to figure out, how are you going to do that? Directly, through an agent. I put lots of dollar signs there because if you go direct, that's the most expensive. Meaning you put yourself there, you hire somebody, and you send an employee there. Down at the bottom, a reseller. Doesn't cost you anything, but you lose a lot of control. And of course, you have the option to do absolutely nothing. Then, once you find that market, you segment that market. This is the most critical piece of marketing I can tell you about today. And that's one of the exercises that I'd like to go through with the ladies up here, but each one of you too. Let's just say today we're going to go after Japan. Okay? You can think about your own products and services and decide, well, maybe I'd like to go after Korea or Taiwan or Singapore or something like that. But for our purposes today, I'd like to talk about Japan. I think Sarah's going to maybe talk a little bit about Australia, right? So learn as much as you can about that market segment. Are you selling to females? Are you selling to males? Are you selling to young people? Are you selling to older people? Are you selling to rich people? Are you selling to an extreme niche of very high-end chefs? Okay, I've been consulting with a lady on the Big Island who sells a very unique food product. It goes to Japan, but there's probably only 50 or 100 people maximum is her market in Japan because it's a very specific chef that had a very specific training, right? That's a difficult thing that's your maximum market, 100 people in Japan, right? I mean, you better hope that each one of those people buys a lot from you. All right. So, but that's the point, is I want you to think about segmenting your market. When I asked some of you earlier, where would you like to sell? Many people said Japan, anywhere. Okay, that's not going to cut it. You're going to have to get very, very detailed about who is your customer, right? And I want you thinking about that. We'll do a little exercise here in a little while. Who exactly is my customer, right? What is their education? How much money do they make? How much money do they have to spend extra? Are they married? Do they have kids, right? This, of course, are for mass market products. But let's say you're that lady I was just alluding to earlier on the Big Island selling specialized food products to these 50 or 100 chefs in Japan. Think about how does she knows who those people are. So it's easy for her to advertise. They all read the same magazines, or they get the same types of people calling on them, representatives selling things. So she knows exactly who her market is, right? And what you need to do is start to hone in. You look at Japan as 120 million people. Is your product really going to be sold to 120 million people? Probably not, right? You're not selling air. You're not selling gravity that everybody has to use, right? You're selling sort of something specific. And you need to start focusing your marketing messages towards these key customers, and that's the segment. And you try to keep segmenting down until you can figure out who are the several thousand, who are the 10,000 customers that I might have in Japan, right? If you're lucky, maybe it's 100,000. It depends, okay? This is another topic I'd like you to think about a lot, is who are the early adopters here? Meaning, who are the people who are very likely to buy your product first? And get to know those people really well. Give it to them for free. Let them blog about it. Or, these are the sort of the thought leaders in that particular world in the product that you're selling. But like, for example, if you're selling candles or what have you, there's a few people in Japan that will be your primary market up front. And if they go out and evangelize about your product, they're doing all this free marketing for you. And that's what you want them. You want these early adopters on your side. You need information. This is tough. Market research, we could have a whole separate course on just market research. In fact, there's college majors on just market research. You can get an MBA or a PhD in market research. But it's extremely important, and it goes back to point 2 here, is how do you find your target market segment, right? And I'd also like to talk about this product statement or the pitch. You should be able to say, what is your product market statement, or what is your pitch? You should be able to say that in about 30 seconds and roughly about 50 words, give or take. It's not an exact science, but you should be able to say, this is my product, this is the good point, why it's different, and this is my target market. And then all of your marketing messages just sing to that target market, that segment of the market. There's no secret recipe for gathering market information and market data, but it's hard to do it from here. You have to be on the ground. You have to go to these trade shows. You have to poke around. You have to get there and just say, hit the pavement, walk around, meet people, meet some of your competitors at these trade shows, of course meet customers, but meet distributors or resellers or agents, and just ask a lot of questions. Lots and lots of questions. And I like the what if question, right? You talk to customers, you say, what if we had this product from Hawaii that was, I'm making this up completely, what if it was organic and made from all Hawaii components, natural? What if it cost $20 per jar, and we could get it here weekly, or we could make sure that there was a supply of it every month, but we can make 1,000 jars a month. What if there was that product? How much would you pay for that? People answer that question. People who are in that business will answer that question. So please go out there, ask these what if questions, but eventually you will get to the point where you have to decide, am I going to get into this market or am I not? And let me just jump back here, that it is an option to do nothing. And that will save you a lot of money. If you decide, hey, this market is just not for me, then stop. Don't throw any more money at it. Look somewhere else. Look at Korea. Look at China. Look at Canada. Look at Mexico. Look at something like that, right? But I hope you do something up here, right? As we'll talk about it towards the end, I like this go direct model. I figure it's like golf, Brenda. You go long or you go home, right? When you're in the tee box, you just hit it. And we'll talk about that later. It's not as risky as it seems. Refine your pitch. I made a couple of examples here, and this is where I'd like you to start doing your own activity here, and we'll talk to the ladies here for a second. I just made these up, but these are based on some companies that I've been talking to in the past several months, local companies in Hawaii. There's the Imaginary Soap Company and the Imaginary Swimsuit Company. Now that I think about it, that's probably a strange name, Imaginary Swimsuit Company. Because, the Imaginary Soap Company makes soap products from locally sourced, high-purity natural ingredients from the Hawaiian Islands. Our soaps are non-allergenic and are 100% handmade with aloha to provide after-sun cleansing and moisture. Okay, it's getting there. That's not perfect, a perfect pitch or a perfect product statement. It's getting to a perfect statement. But you can tell, read that and think, who am I talking to there? If somebody reads that statement, or I'm sitting next to them on an airplane and I tell them, they say, what's your product, or what do you do? And I read that to them. Do you get a feeling for what we make? Who's going to buy it? I mean, do you think it's a male? Is it a female? Are they old? Are they young? They have lots of piercings, big crazy hair, or are they sort of older lady in a kimono with purple hair, you know, what do you think? I don't know, it's not clear, it's not totally clear, right? So that's the point of having, this is a decent pitch, but it's not clear, it's a little bit vague. So let's go to the imaginary swimsuit company. Makes conservative swimwear on Maui from modern materials in Japanese sizes for women over 40 with an average annual income of 9 million yen. 70% of whom live in the Tokyo metropolitan area. There are no products in the market with authentic, subdued Hawaiian prints. Now, who's buying that product? You pretty much know, right? Are you going to, if that is your target market segment and you write a product statement like that, are you going to advertise in Men's Health magazine? No, right? Probably not. Are you going to advertise in like a Waikiki beach sort of magazine? I kind of doubt it, but maybe. But there's magazines, there's blogs, there's websites, there's things where that audience is going to go to. And you need to find out where they're going and put ads there or find out who those people are or what have you. So I'm trying to get more and more specific. These are just general, but if I sat down with you and learned about your business, and by the way, at the end, sitting in the back, I'll have a table back there and I can meet with anybody one-on-one if you want to go over these types of topics. But I love helping people get to this target market pitch, right? This product statement, because it helps clear their mind. So it gives you sort of diamond-like focus on who is your market and how you address that market through your marketing messages, through your website and through your emails and what have you, right? Once you figure out who is this target market, it makes your life so much simpler than just saying, I'd like to export to Japan. You know, that's way too vague, right? Way too vague. And again, maybe I'm unfairly picking on Japan, but that's just because most people I meet in Hawaii would like to export to Japan. But this would be the same if you happen to be in the business of selling things to Brazil or wherever. You can hone in so clearly on who your target market segment is, and then make every communication from your company directed only to that target market segment, right? The more you focus, the easier life's going to become, the less money you spend, the less energy you spend, the less time you spend, and you understand exactly where to go when you're going to visit customers, when you're going to trade shows, when you do all of these things. Focus, focus, focus on who is your market. And you can't sit back and say, well, I sell bikinis, but I don't want to exclude the male market, right? I mean, I hear these types of things. Like I sell this product that's clearly female-oriented, younger female-oriented, but I don't want to exclude this whole other part of the market. Well, you can't think that way. You have to drill down to who exactly is your customer and then talk to them and ignore everybody else. Absolutely. Ignore them. Don't feel bad about it. You're saving time and money and energy. Ignore who is not your market. All right. So before we jump into here, I'd like to take a break and just talk about your pitch. And I'd like you to think about it. I'd like you to take a piece of paper and work on what is your pitch. But I'm going to use my guinea pigs for a second. Can you just very briefly tell us about the company that you're working with, and we'll try to work on a pitch together. Angie, go ahead.
My name is Angie Higa. I'm the CEO and designer of Sky Dreams LLC, and I design beach and island-inspired tote bags and clutches for women with island flare.
Okay. Where do you,
And they're made in Hawaii.
made in Hawaii, where do you sell this product now?
I currently sell them in a lot of Waikiki boutique shops on all islands as well as in Japan.
Can you speak up?
I sell them in all over all of the islands as well as Guam and in Japan.
Would you say you would like to export more to Japan?
Definitely.
Of course you'd like to export to Korea, China, wherever, but
Sure.
right now Japan is your focus.
Just focusing on Japan.
Okay, great. And your clutches and your bags, I've seen them, they're beautiful.
Thank
But
you.
they're not, they're for women
Yes.
mostly.
Yes.
And what would you say is the age range of the ladies that would buy this product?
They range from about the early 20s all the way up to probably about 60.
Early 20s to 60. But is there a real target in there? Like the early 20s are maybe not that many buy them, and there's a sweet spot in there where
I want to say in the 30s.
30s.
Professionals. Yeah.
Professionals?
Professionals.
So these are ladies who, when they go back, they buy them from you in Hawaii.
Yes.
When they go back to Japan, they'll take them to the office.
Sure. There's the tote bags they can use it in Japan, and what I've seen at different events that I've been selling them at the small little tote bags. They like to use them on the train, as lunch totes. My clutches, the whole idea when I designed it was to come up with something that was multifunctional, so they can still use it as a clutch, but it's great to take to the beach, put wet items in there. Moms use it as wet bag for baby diapers, so there's different functions that it's designed for.
Now, the ladies that buy these, they take them back to Tokyo. There's not a lot of beaches in Tokyo, right? But your bag gives them the feeling they're still in Hawaii, I guess, right? That's important, and we'll talk about that in a little while, how much Hawaii, aloha, all of that has a tremendous marketing advantage for companies here that I don't think companies locally use as well as they should. Okay, now I've seen your prints. They're beautiful, but they're not crazy bright, right? They're fairly, let's say, subdued. I'd say conservative but colorful, right? If there is such a thing. Are there ladies that come in? You see them buying in the boutiques. You can start to see some commonality in these ladies in the way, I guess, in the way they dress, their hairstyle, this sort of thing. Can you describe sort of what might be the average customer?
Nina could answer that for me. She's one of my stores that I sell to. But I guess we have a lot of visitors that do come, and they're just.
But are they coming in bikinis like they just came off the beach, or are they more like in the longer dresses and hats and shopping more?
It's a little bit of a hard question for me to answer because I'm not there at the boutiques to sell. But when I do sell them at my events, there's a lot of local people, and they're just women. They like the idea that they can also travel with it. It was, again, that's the premise of my business, Sky Dreams, is travel-related products.
Oh, see, there you go. That's a really interesting concept. It's a travel-oriented woman. Okay, so now, can you think, just the exercise we're following, how we could narrow this down so that Angie would be able to write a product statement or a pitch to that target segment, and she would be able to fairly quickly figure out, oh, hey, I have $500 I'd like to spend on advertising. Where should I put that $500? right? She mentioned travel, the whole feeling, the vibe about the product is based on travel, ladies that travel. Obviously, they're going to be, I would guess, slightly conservative ladies because they're after the subdued tones that they can take to the office later. So you can figure this out now, and you can start to see, oh, travel. Okay, there's travel blogs, there's travel websites, there's in-flight magazines, there's all these kinds of things that we're not going to advertise this in Men's Health, right? Why not? Well, it'd just be a waste of money. Just throwing money down the drain there. And as you can see, you start to hone in on who Angie's target market is, right? It's pretty clear. And I bet with a little more research, you could find a sweet spot for age, income, how many kids, all of that stuff would not be very difficult to find. Of course, you'll have some outliers. There may be some 17-year-old girl that comes in, and there might be a 117-year-old lady that comes in and buys it. But generally speaking, on a bell curve, you'll be able to figure out quite clearly who 85% of your customers are. And they have so many common denominators, that 85%, right? So in the future, I'll work with you on that and how to get there. Okay, Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about the product you're representing in Australia?
We we're the distributor for Honey Girl Organics. It's called Honey Girl Organics Australia, and they're 100% honey-made products from Hawaii that are moisturizing and cleaning cosmetics. Some of the good points about it is they're very affordable and they're long-lasting because they have a very long spread by using just a small amount. And they're USDA certified. So in Australia, a lot of the international environment that buys products there really likes the high quality content. We're differentiated because we have specialized and custom sizes of the cosmetics based on who we sell to. So our target market is usually salons and therapy clinics or cosmetic counters that manage clients with dry skin conditions. So on a direct market, we have found that mothers of children who have skin conditions is a very focused target for us to sell to. And we tend to have a reoccurring buying base. So once they use the cosmetics, they'll come back and buy again. We sell in Australia, and we target coastal environments because that's where it's very dry conditions for people. Our secondary market is elderly women who have difficulty in coastal environments with their skin as well. So it's kind of on both sides.
So could you sell directly to doctors, dermatologists?
Yeah.
Because elderly women and young children have almost nothing in common in terms of a marketing thing, right? So you'd have to figure out your market. The target market could be the dermatologist and not the actual patients themselves, just depending on the situation, right? So you have to think about that. I have two very disparate markets there. Young children, elderly women, they both have dry skin, but how do you address both of those markets in a message, right? Maybe not. Maybe you market to the doctors, right? So that it's just a totally different concept. But what I like is it sounds like this company has started to really hone in on who is the target market, rather than just saying Australia. Right?
Yeah. We were very fortunate to receive one of the HiSTEP export grants that Jamie mentioned earlier. And so we went to our first trade show, and when we were interacting with Australians, that's how we actually found out what the interest was. They were coming up and they were testing the product. So we were surprised. We thought that we would be selling more to the cosmetics, people wanting organic, nice, clean products. But what we really found out is there's a lot of dry skin conditions in Australia, and so pleasantly surprised to be able to start advertising and marketing.
I think the culture there is similar to here, that they spend a lot of time in the sun. And if you have products that address that sort of thing, Australia is a very natural market for you. I think Brazil is too, but Brazil is more humid, right? Australia can be extremely dry, and especially around the coast. So again, think about that product. Think about who is their target market segment, right? They've nailed it down pretty well, but I bet they could even get a level deeper by discussing with some doctors what is those underlying conditions, right? What is it about small children and elderly women that makes them prone to this problem? Is it the sun? Is it a kind of a vitamin deficiency, maybe something like that? And if you found that out, you could start to understand more about the problems that these young children, and elderly women are having, right? Maybe what's the problem? Is it itchy? Is it the skin is flaky? I mean, what is the problem for them? What is the concern for them, right? I once consulted to a company that was making shampoo, and they were very interested in Japan and New York City. Okay, why is that? Because in Japan and in New York City, people wear very dark clothes, black suits, very dark navy blue suits, lots of black. And when you wear dark clothes, you are much more susceptible to showing dandruff, right, on your shoulders and dry skin that falls off your hair. So they had this solution that they thought was way better than any mass market product. It was actually kind of a cream that you'd rub into your head. Don't joke about me. I understand. That they felt they could really sell to barbers, okay, or hairstylists, not to the end user themselves, because the end user themselves, they were trying all these store-bought products like Head and Shoulders or whatever these general types of shampoos are. And they were able to find this distributor in Japan who it was very niche-y business. I'll never forget it. This distributor had kind of a lock on the market for barbers and hairstylists in the Tokyo area that focused on people with skin problems. And they made this barber would help people who had, there were maybe like 40 of these barbers around the Tokyo area. And so they found that this was a market channel for them into the Tokyo market. Once they got into the market, they found that they could sell their product for something like, if I remember, it was 9 or 10 times the price of what they initially thought they could sell it for, right? Because it fit such a specific niche, and people were willing to pay whatever they could for it. Anyway, let's talk very briefly about social media. This is getting, it shouldn't be any surprise to anybody that this is a big topic now in marketing, right? Internationally, though, this can be a bit difficult because you have to put your social marketing materials in another language. Maybe. But of course, you still have to have it in English because you have a market here. You have a market in Hawaii that you're trying to address with your social media. Maybe you have a market in the mainland, Canada. You're still using all the same sort of social media. But when you put something in Japanese, well, it's tough. And I specifically call out here, Japan doesn't have a lot of English. It just doesn't. And I'm routinely surprised after doing this for 27 years. I'm still surprised when I meet Americans who go to Japan and feel like I should be able to just speak English, right? It just doesn't work that way. So we need to get our message in Japanese. Again, we're talking about focusing on Japan today, but whatever language it is, you really need to get your message out there. So more and more, I'm convinced that for Hawaii-based companies, a great social media platform is Instagram. Not for everybody, but for most. They have the types of products that look good in a photo. It's easy to put a simple caption, even if it's just an all-English caption, or maybe it's no caption. Just your photo in the bright sunshine, the palm trees, whatever it is. That's just a great social media message, right? So please look at Instagram. Instagram's now owned by Facebook. Both are growing throughout Asia. Korea and China maybe are the outliers there, that they have their own domestic social media platforms, but that's not to say that, of course, in China you can't get Facebook or Instagram, but elsewhere in Asia, even in Korea, they're growing. It's quite common in Japan now, and I like it. Of course, Twitter is fairly ubiquitous, but Twitter you actually really will have to translate your materials into Japanese and be very concise and get it into that 140 characters. Another thing I try to tell people, it's very easy to set up a telephone number in Japan. It costs like $5 a month. You can set up a phone number on a service like Ring Central or VoIP Dito or whatever. And you could record a message that people can call that number and they just get a recording, or it can actually forward to your phone, your mobile phone, your office phone here in Hawaii. Now, of course, somebody calls you from Japan, you need to be able to deal with that phone call, right? You can't just sort of say hello and how are you and what have you. You need somebody there that can deal with the issues that that customer might have. But it's extremely cheap to set up something like this, right? So please think about that. I'd like to also suggest when you're building your website, and of course, it goes without saying, it's 2017, almost 2017 and a half. You got to have a website, right? That's just fundamental, okay? I had a professor in school who used to say things like, it's like having a bar and you don't sell Budweiser. Okay, even if you don't like Budweiser or what have you, if you have a bar, you have to have Budweiser. I think if you have a business, you have to have a website, and it has to be a good website. It doesn't have to be extremely expensive, what have you, but it has to be well thought out, well laid out, good words, good communication on there. But the real point I'd like to make here, if you're selling in Japan, make at least one page of your main website in Japanese so the customers feel like, oh, this company cares about me. They went out of their way enough to make a page here. But ideally, you'd like to have a fully bilingual website. And if you're really serious about Japan, you could just have a separate website dedicated to the Japan market. The point being, I'd really like you to take this away. Mobile is extremely important. As modern websites, think about your life in Hawaii is quite different than the average person in Tokyo or Osaka or somewhere who spends a lot of time on the subway, right? They're looking at websites on their mobile phones like this, all for an hour, 90 minutes on their commute. They're on their phones looking at websites and ordering things and doing things like that. You don't really do that very much driving. I hope you don't do it when you're driving on the H1. Right? It's different. On a subway and a train, you have a lot of time to goof around on a mobile phone. And that's where a lot of transactions take place, or at least a lot of information gathering, and maybe they order it when they get home. But the point being, make your website mobile friendly, meaning it looks good and is easy to read on a mobile device, right? That's extremely important in the modern marketing world. Trade shows. You guys alluded to it earlier. Can you, Angie, tell us a little bit about the trade shows you've been to in Japan? You've been to TIGS?
Tokyo Gift Fair, yes.
Is it useful?
It's excellent. It's a one of the events that I plan for every year. I kind of, focus on that and look forward to it every year. It's actually a great opportunity.
What do you do when you're there? At the trade show, what do you do?
It's a buyer show. It's a wholesale show. So I display my products. My first year when I went in with my travel blanket, thinking that that would be a good product for me to sell there. And I quickly learned that wasn't really anything. It didn't do well. So I refocused. I had some good insight from a very good friend, my sales rep, Jan, and we kind of looked at what I can do, and then I developed my product, which is the Aloha collection. I noticed that the designs were something that a lot of visitors and especially people from Japan liked. And although I was selling my product on Hawaiian Airlines in their duty-free catalog, that actually helped me in Japan. It kind of gave me some credibility with some of the
Sure.
buyers that were coming by. So last year I went in with my Aloha collection. I had great response. They loved it. They love my design, which is Aloha with the O as the pineapple. They're all over that. And got some really good leads. Acquired an agent, and actually had an account that was in Guam. A really very good one.
Good for you. When you go to the trade show, were you able to see competitive products or at least get a flavor for how does the price of your product compare to other products, and what are people willing to spend in Japan?
Yeah, it's kind of sensitive because everybody is very, very price conscious, especially when the yen rate is not in their favor. So if the dollar is strong, we have to take that into consideration. But there at the Tokyo Gift Fair, we're at the Hawaii Pavilion. There are other vendors there that do sell tote bags, and we're all kind of in the same kind of price range. Other vendors, it's so huge. It's overwhelming actually, and there's just different vendors from all over the world there, selling different things.
Do you usually stay at the booth or do you walk around?
I'm there at the booth. Yeah, so it's kind of important to always be there. You never know who's going to come by and talk to you, and they just like the idea that the designer is there. I do actually have a translator that's in my booth that helps with that, and it's been actually that's very, very important. It's key because a lot of them that come in, they do not speak English.
Sure.
And they're a little bit more comfortable. All of my collateral material is also translated in Japanese, which is, my wholesale line sheet, anything I'm going to give is also translated.
Great. Sarah, did you say earlier you met some of these key customers at a trade show? Where was that trade show?
We were in Sydney, and the trade show there was through the Reed trade show system, which has them all over the world. And one of the things that really helped us at the trade show was we found out that our prices were a little bit high, but we had very large volume of our cosmetics. So Australians buy in different volume sizes and in different combinations for their moisturizer kits, and they call it a regime. And so we were able to come back to the manufacturer in Hawaii and gain permission to bring the volume size down, which brought the cost down, which made it more affordable. And since we're an unknown brand, then Australians are more likely to buy it for a little bit of money and then try it out, and then they really love it. We have a really good...
They call it a regime?
Yeah, when you have a combination of like a moisturizer, a cleaner, and then maybe like a lipstick or chapstick, or if you have a nighttime or a morning care, those are all called regimes. Yeah, so you sell in kits usually.
But I've never heard that before. So is that just to Australia? In Australia they call it a regime, or elsewhere?
It's an industry term.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, an industry term. We didn't have any problems with translators, except for a couple of times. So on purpose, we went into an English-speaking environment.
Right.
Yeah, we really wanted to try products like this in a place where we could communicate with the buyer.
That's good.
So, yeah.
Now, did you do any kind of British English translation of your materials, or you just kept it purely U.S. based?
We kept it purely U.S. based, and we have a website. It's honeygirlorganics.com.au.
Oh,
And so
good.
we learned that when you go to register your website domain names in another country, they're going to ask you for your business registration documents in that country. And in earlier advice, Rob, we did hear about the benefits of Ring Central. So we had established a Ring Central line, and it is true just to have something as simple as a line that's dedicated for off of that website that can spin voicemails and stuff like that. It really helped us. It's just our start. We're just
Sure.
learning about it. So
Very inexpensive. Okay, that's great. That's great. One of the things about trade shows I'd like to talk about, though, is I meet a lot of Hawaii companies that say, for example, they go to the Tokyo International Gift Show. It's 3 days. Let's say it's, what is it, usually Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Something. So they get there Tuesday night, they go set up. Friday after the show, they go to the airport and come back to Honolulu. Okay, you're already there. Go out. Go look for competitive products in the marketplace. Go to the department stores. Go walk around. Take another few days. Try to make some appointments ahead of time. Visit some distributors and just try to get as much information as you can. The Japanese market is not Tokyo big sight, right? You got to get out into the country a little bit and see what's going on. So I get frustrated because I meet too many people who are too eager to get out of there, right? But you're already there, so spend another couple days and look around. I hope you guys do that. This is something I think these two ladies are doing a very good job of marketing it for their products, but I need to see more of this from Hawaii companies. The state of Hawaii, whether they're trying to or not, is doing a wonderful job of marketing Hawaii and Hawaii life and aloha and everything that comes with it around the world. You've got Hawaii 5.0, you have the old Hawaii 5.0, you have movies, you have all of these things. There's just an image about Hawaii that is fantastic. There's no negative image about it, right? So if you've been to one of my talks before, you've heard me use the example of Transylvania. Let's say you were a company in Transylvania and you make a product and you're trying to go out into the world and sell this product. What is the word association that comes with Transylvania, right? They have a very difficult time going out into the world and selling things. Here, it's so easy, right? There can't be another place on earth that has this impact when you say Hawaii, made in Hawaii, from Hawaii, designed in Hawaii, Hawaiian prints, Hawaiian ingredients, 100% natural, Hawaiian grown. All of that is just fantastic, right? Even in California, it's fantastic. Hawaii, aloha, all of those types of terms. And we need our companies here to really drive that home, right? Really push that point that, hey, this product is made in Hawaii. It's from Hawaii. Clean air, clean water, clean what have you, right? This is a big problem in other parts of the world, and especially in Asia, right? They're nervous about the products that they eat, they drink, they rub into their skin, what have you. In Japan, it's even gotten worse in the past few years with the nuclear waste and all of this other stuff and bad air blowing over from China and whatever. People are extremely sensitive to this. And when they see on there, made in Hawaii, you guys, it's great, And I feel like I meet so many companies here who kind of downplay it. Like, made in Hawaii is not a good thing. It's a great thing, and you have to go overboard on it. I say overboard to the point where it's almost syrupy, too sugary. Like you're going to throw up. There's so much aloha in this product, right? But so what? It works, right? And you need it. You have to put this on your product, and you have to make it part of your marketing message, right? It's a very unique aspect of being a company here, that you need to be able to market as much as possible, made in Hawaii or Hawaii ingredients and all of this stuff. Do not put this behind the scenes. Put it right up front in big neon font, okay? Price quotes, terms, these are things like if you get a customer and they're interested in buying from you, you have to be able to give them a quote. Hopefully you can do it in Japanese yen. It's not hard. You have PayPal and all of these things now. It's very easy to get paid in dollars, but the customer's paying in yen. Know the local terms. That's why I was asking about regime, because I thought maybe that's an Australia-specific term. But know, how do people refer to certain things in your industry in Japan, right? How do they, creams or candles or soaps or clothes, or how do they refer to these different things? It's different than it is here. Even if they're using an English word, it might be different than the way you would say it. But also the local terms in a contract, the local terms on an invoice, all of these things. It's not difficult. You can find this stuff online very easily, but try to make it as local as possible. And one of my key points when I'm lecturing on sales and marketing is you want to make it as easy as possible for your customers to buy from you and pay you, right? For them, it should be extremely painless. They should feel good about paying you, which is one of the amazing things to me about Apple Pay, right? When you go to Jamba Juice and you just wave your phone at the thing and you pay, right? I mean, that's incredible what they're doing there. They're making me feel good about giving them money. I feel cool waving my phone at the thing and giving them $10 for a smoothie, right? That's incredible marketing, right? But that's what you need to be able to do with your customers, is make it as easy as possible for them to buy from you. Now, in exporting, there may be this term occasionally, depending on the size of the order you get, that you've never heard before compared to selling domestically. That's a letter of credit. Still, a lot of Korean companies like to pay by letter of credit. But that's when you get on orders of $100,000 or more. A lot of small companies don't have to deal with that for a long time. But I just want you to be aware of it because it can happen. Another thing that's common in Asia is staggered payments. So they might request that, and you need to be prepared for that. So what does that mean, a staggered payment? Let's say somebody wants to order 1,000 clutches from Angie, right? Wouldn't that be nice? And they say, but we're not 100% sure she can get us 1,000 clutches in the time she says she can. So what we're going to do is, when we place the order, we'll send 50% of the product. When she ships it, we'll send her another 40%. And then after we go through them and test them and get them ready and check them for quality, we'll send the final 10%. Okay, those are sort of staggered payments. So don't be surprised if you're asked to do that from Asia. It's quite common. You don't have to agree to it. I'm just saying you could be asked to do that. Now, this is another topic that's near and dear to my heart, because I think a lot of people don't understand this or don't take it seriously, and it affects the overall price of the product, the marketing image of the product. It's critical. Especially from Hawaii. I'm going to jump way back. This is always risky in a presentation to go back, but look at this map. The products are actually going pretty far, right? You have to ship it. Usually air, but if you ship a lot of it, you're going to ship it by ocean, all out here, right? So you have to take shipping extremely seriously, especially from Hawaii, right? And what I get very frustrated about meeting lots of companies here, and not just small companies, they don't really understand what does it cost to ship the product to the end user, right? And what I really want you guys to focus on after this meeting, you go back, you call We have a colleague on the HPEC board from UPS, but there's other shippers you can call. Find out, what does it cost me to send one of my products to a customer in Tokyo? Then what does it cost to send 10 of them, and 100 and 1,000, right? And it's different, right? Of course, if you send 1,000 of something, it's more expensive than sending one, but overall, per unit, the price is much lower, right? And this has a big impact on what it is. So let's say you're selling a jar of, I don't know, I was recently talking to somebody about honey. Let's say you're selling a jar of honey. It's very good honey. Maybe it's $10 a bottle for a jar of honey. But if it costs $40 to ship it to Japan, you know, who's going to buy that, right? It's difficult. Maybe a few sales per year. But what happens if you were sending 100 at a time or 1,000 at a time, and you were stocking that product maybe locally, or you had a distributor or a reseller or an agent who could stock it? I bet your unit price per unit is certainly better than $40, right? I bet it comes down to, I don't know, $2, $3, $4, $5 at the most if you send 1,000 of them. So of course that affects your price that the customer pays. That's what marketing is all about. You need to understand that price. And I meet too many people here locally who lose this. They lose profit, or they lose interest in the market. They just give up on the market because they can't handle these issues right here. But it's not that big of a deal. You just have to think it through, and you have to fully understand what are these shipping costs, right? Now, some products can't go by ocean. Some have to go by air. But on the other hand, once you get to the point where you're shipping enough, or you can get into a consolidated shipment and ship it by ocean, it's so much cheaper, right? Okay, the other thing, I've talked to a lot of local companies here. They think, well, if I just send it to Japan and I don't really declare what it is, I just declare it as a gift, that we'll be all right, you know, until we get caught. You can't do that. It's not a legitimate business model. You have to declare what that product is, whether it's clutches or creams or what have you. Alcohol, certainly you'll have taxes, but that's just the way it is. Meat products, you'll have a lot of difficulty, right? Stuff like that, cookies, chocolates, honeys, all of that sort of thing. Just declare what it is and do it the right way. You've probably never thought about shipping insurance, but that affects your price of your product. The tariffs or the inbound duties that are due on certain products going into Japan, you need to think about that. Some products will be duty-free, some products won't. And you need to understand, it's published, it's not random. Your products don't show up at the dock or the airport in Tokyo and the tax assessor gives some random percentage. It's published. You'll know exactly what you're supposed to pay. But that has to be calculated into your price so that your customer knows what it is, right? There are situations where companies from Hawaii will ship a product to Tokyo. The product arrives at the customer's house or at their business. And you can imagine the lady opens the door. Hello, ma'am, here's your package from Hawaii. You owe 47,000 yen in duties or whatever, right? Because you didn't think about that. So now she says, hey, I don't want to pay for that. I'm not paying those duties. So it's your responsibility now to pay for the shipping back to Hawaii if the customer rejects the shipment. That's international law. There's no question about it. It's non-negotiable. You have to pay for that shipping back to Hawaii. It happens. Not often, but it does happen. So you need to understand what are these shipping costs and the tariffs and what have you. Another thing, if you're selling any kind of machinery or any kind of goods that require spare parts or warranties, right? Like let's say Angie, she sells a nice clutch. It gets to Japan, but the lady calls her immediately and says the zipper's broken, the zipper doesn't work. And what do? Right? What do? You don't want the lady to be angry and go tell all her friends, oh, don't buy this from this Sky Dreams. Don't do that. The zipper's always broken. Well, maybe it only broke one time in a million, right? But she's the one that got it. So you need to think about this. What happens when these things occur? How do I fix that problem quickly, make the customer feel good about this situation, right? Very, very, very important for these foreign markets, because getting a replacement to them quickly to make them feel good about the purchase is extremely expensive, right? To FedEx a new, or UPS a new clutch to this lady, because you want to make her happy, right? It probably costs you $100 to do it overnight. Okay. Let me go back, sorry. After sales services talks a little bit on the same point. This is a big deal in Asia, perhaps mostly in Japan. This is an extremely important topic. After the sale, how do I take care of the customer? How do I do these things? Again, it could be, it's important enough, I think, you could stock a few of these products locally somehow so you could replace them quickly in an emergency to make the customers feel happy about it. And then, again, when I met you before the talk, I didn't find anybody selling any kind of machinery or anything like that that requires spare parts. But for our audience on the recording or what have you, this is a significant topic. You know, if you have to send spare parts by courier overnight to get something operating quickly in Japan, that's extremely expensive. So you think about ahead of time, how are we going to stock some of these things locally? How about, Sarah, do you guys stock any of these creams in Australia?
We do. When we work with sales reps, we get them set up with an initial kit, and it has to have 40 items in it. And then they start the selling, and then we start replacing that for them so they've got something available. But we'll also drop ship if we have to. We had a situation where a woman really wanted something for her daughter's birthday on a deadline, and we missed that message in our email system and in our order system. And she immediately posted on social media, is this a real company? I'm very upset, so it's a real thing to be prepared to respond to.
Yeah, I can't stress that enough. Things will go wrong, maybe not major, but still, you want to be able to take care of a problem very quickly. And as Sarah alluded to, social media now, a customer can make a very big deal out of a very minor problem just by going on Twitter or Facebook or Yelp. God forbid you're in the restaurant business and somebody didn't have a good experience at your restaurant. It's incredible. So again, let's just go over some of these hiccups you can find with pricing. And I'd just like to make sure all the things we've talked about thus far, make sure you're calculating them into your final price that the customer is going to pay. And in that mode of making it as easy as possible for the customer to buy from you and pay you, get all of these costs figured into your final price. Now, compared to just some years ago, 10 years ago or so, life is a lot easier to get paid from international customers via PayPal or similar services. And I also hear people complain, well, then we have to pay PayPal a commission. Well, so what? That's their business, but they make it so easy. PayPal, again, they're making it easy for you to use them to have people pay you through them, right? They do a very good job of that. So you can't get around it in the modern world. There will be a couple to 3% you will have to pay somebody to be in the middle. But it takes away a lot of headaches that we used to have when, let's say, you'd have to pay or receive money by international wire or all of these things. Now you can do this online. So don't complain that much about the PayPal fees. It is what it is. Now, if you're getting into these foreign markets, let's stick with Japan, you do need to pay attention, as Angie said earlier, to the foreign exchange rates, right? Sarah, with this Australia product they're sending there, they have to pay attention to the Australian dollar. Why? Well, now, today, the Japanese yen is about 110 yen per dollar, right? That means for a Japanese consumer, things from the US, from Hawaii, are relatively expensive. They just feel more expensive. If a Japanese tourist is coming here, going to Waikiki, the hotel bill to them feels more expensive because when they convert that hotel bill in dollars back to yen, the yen is quite a bit weaker than it was, so they don't get as much per US dollar. This is interesting because this is really the first time in my career that it's been that way. When I was much younger and living in Japan, it was down as low as 78 yen per dollar, which meant it was extremely expensive to be a US dollar-based American person trying to live in Japan. It felt like, just to get a beer was like $20, after work or something. A sandwich, lunch was $22 for a very simple lunch. It's crazy, right? But now it's somewhat reversed. It's not egregiously expensive for Japanese right now, but it's still more expensive than it has been in the past. So you need to understand the flow and the ebb of the yen versus the dollar and how that works, and you use it to your advantage, right? There may be times when it's good for you to run a sale, right? Because the yen happens to be particularly strong, so you need to discount a little bit for a certain holiday or what have you. The other thing I would suggest too is if you're really selling consumer-based products, you get to know the Japanese sale system. And when they have sales, it's based on seasonal topics and what have you. And the Japanese they haven't been, Japan has not been Walmartified yet, meaning there's no such concept as everyday low price in Japan. The Japanese system still buys a lot on sales, right? We're used to now, in a way, the system of that's the lowest possible price that this company can offer the product. But in Japan, people are sort of used to this system where they buy in cycles throughout the seasons. So get to know that. It can be important later on, depending on how much volume you start to sell. We've already talked about many of these things, but I'd like to reiterate here the part about English. You can't go to Japan. Angie, how can you go out and just speak English to your buyers? Not very well, I would assume.
Yeah, most of the buyers that do come in, they speak very, very little bit of English. So having a translator is key. And one of the benefits that the Department of Business and Economic Development does is for first-time vendors there, they do provide a translator that we do share. But we've then, I partnered up with Jan and some other vendors, and we share translators. That's really key.
Great. All right. Here's some homework I want you to do. And in fact, you can work on it now, and we can review it after the meeting. I'd like you to work on that target market segment. Write it down, and let's refine it. Get as specific as you can. Go back to the beginning when we were talking about, are you selling to males? Are you selling to females? The age range, income levels. Is your product expensive? Is your product cheaper than others? What's the key point? And I really would love to see you build some aloha into this message, because that is extremely helpful to talk about made in Hawaii. So try to get that target market statement under 50 words. That's just a rough figure, right? But you should be able to spit it out in about 30 seconds to anybody, and that becomes the mantra for your marketing message. Get your shipping costs. Let's go back here for a second. Learn these. Go to UPS. Contact a UPS representative. Take them your product. Have them come and meet you at your facility. Show them your product and let them weigh it, look at it. How's it packaged? Does it need to be chilled? Does it need, what kind of shipping does it require? But figure out, how much does it cost to send one, and how much does it cost to send 1,000 of them? It's very, very different, right? And you can negotiate good rates if you're sending product regularly, right? Even if you're just sending 10 or 100 products every month, you can lower your shipping rates. When you lower your shipping rates, what does that mean? You could either pass on the savings to the end user, or it's a higher profit for you. But do not neglect the shipping costs in terms of the marketing strategy. It's extremely important. Then figure out if you're using an agent or a distributor, or you're going to go there yourself, or you're going to hire somebody by yourself, and then put whoever that is, put that contact information on your website, and how can they find you. Build a website, or at least a page in the local language of the market that you're trying to attack. We've been talking about Japan today. This is critical. It's absolutely critical to have that local language material for people to see. It's the first, and again, make it mobile friendly so that they can read it on the subways and what have you. Now, anybody who's not from the US totally understands this issue about A4 paper, right? If you're making marketing materials, this is letter size 8.5 by 11 paper. It's the only country in the world that uses it is this one, right? When you are printing marketing materials that you're going to use in Japan, or basically any other country in the world, you need to print it on A4 paper, because what happens is this letter size paper will not fit in non-US file cabinets and files and stuff like that. So people tend to just throw away your marketing materials, right? It doesn't fit, right? So look, every printer, you've seen it a million times when you're adding a new printer to your computer scheme. It says, you see A4 there, and most people look at that and say, what the heck is A4? But it's used by, most of the world, right? And what happens, I think it's like slightly longer and slightly thinner paper. But then the file cabinets and the files, the actual paper, manila folders and things that they put it in, are based on that size paper, not 8.5 by 11. So when you go to the Tokyo International Gift Show, or whatever trade show you're going to, as long as it's not in this country, print it up on A4 paper, because your customer's much more likely to keep it and use it and read it and put it into their folders. Seems like a trivial thing, but it's not. I've seen this going on now for 27 years, or how long I've been doing this, constantly. American companies sending over 8.5 by 11 pamphlets and what have you, and people just look at it, throw it away. Try to send out some bilingual emails. It's not hard to your key customers, right? Post to social media. Try to post to social media in Japanese. It's not hard. I strongly advise you not to use Google Translate or that kind of thing. But there's a lot of Japanese, native Japanese writers and speakers here. There's simple translation services. There's students at University of Hawaii, Manoa, or HPU that are from Japan, and they gladly do these simple translation services for very cheap, okay? Make sure your Japanese that you're using was written by a native Japanese writer, right? Not, I have a friend whose auntie has a Japanese name and she studied Japanese in high school kind of translator, right? That's not going to fly. You need a real traditional translator. Then do this over and over for a year, and you'll learn about the market. It won't cost you very much, but you'll learn. You'll get some feedback. All right. Now, then I made this slide for the companies, the small companies with guts, I call this, right? And this, I think, is a very doable strategy for a small company in Hawaii. And I know a few that I've advised that are actually doing this. Build a bilingual website with e-commerce capability, if that's what your product has. that it's a physical, tangible product that somebody could buy. Find a part-time person in Tokyo, stock some product with that person. So I give some just very rough estimates, what a website, good website, bilingual website would cost, how much it might cost you to stock a decent amount of product in Tokyo. Pay that person a small monthly salary, $1,000, something like that, and give them a commission, and I suggest 10%. So roughly in a year, that might cost you $12,000 or something. Add up these numbers, and what you could sell this stock for, I'm guessing, is around $20,000. And at the end, if you do everything fairly smoothly, at the worst case, you've spent $2,000. That was your total cost for this activity, was $2,000. My point being that at the end of a year, you will know so much more about the Japanese market than you do now, okay? And all you have spent maybe is $2,000, something like that, right? Of course, you have this initial cost up front, but I truly believe this is extremely workable plan, right? And the point being that, let's say right now on April 11th, what do you know about the Japanese market? Just think. April 11th, 2018, if you implemented this tomorrow, what would you know about the Japanese market in 2018? You'd have so much information. You'd know so much more about who your target market segment is, what price the market is willing to bear there for your products. You'd have a much better idea about shipping costs, how does the product hold up in Japan, how are people using it, what have you. And I really think this is a fairly minor investment for somebody, for a small company who could conceivably spend $20,000 over the next couple of years just goofing around trying to get information about Japan, right? I've seen companies waste so much money trying to learn about a new market, and they sort of dabble in it, and they never really understand what's going on. They find the wrong agent, they find the wrong distributor, and then it takes a year or two to unwind from that relationship and what have you. But for a small company here, this is so straightforward and simple. I highly recommend you think about this. And again, I can talk to anybody later about how to implement such a thing. It's easy. Some extra resources on marketing I put up here. The American Marketing Association has a very nice website. As you can imagine, a marketing association should have a good website. This is a great little website, too, on a marketing dictionary, where you can find terms about marketing. And they actually have a lot of international terms, too. There's a Japanese Marketing Association. Their website isn't very good, but if you ever get to Japan, they're very helpful people. I also strongly recommend organizations that I've been involved in my entire career are the American Chambers of Commerce in various countries. I've been a member in my life of Beijing, Korea, Tokyo, Singapore. I was very heavily involved in Singapore and Hong Kong. And let's just say, because we're talking today about Japan, the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan, the Tokyo office, is fairly centrally located in Tokyo. And they have schemes where you could become a member there, a non-voting member for somebody who's just sort of a visitor to Japan once in a while. But it's a tremendous resource of people who have already been there in the trenches, working on topics that you're working on. You know, I meet so many especially small companies here who they feel like what they're trying to do, they are the first people in the world to ever attempt what they're doing here. They're the first company to ever try to export to Japan. And that's just not true. There's countless people that you can talk to and get advice from and learn how to do some of these things. Yes, you know, you may have some unique product or what have you, but everybody feels they have a fairly unique product, right? And I think that there's a lot to be gained from going to these types of organizations and just being a casual member, or just going and asking questions, getting a membership directory and calling some of the members and just asking for help. Take them to lunch when you go to a trade show, and just pick their brain about things. And you'll find these people live there, they're eating, breathing, sleeping the Japanese market all day long, and they just a tremendous source of knowledge and expertise and experience and wisdom going around there. But you have to make the effort. They're not going to just come knocking on your door and telling you all of this information. You have to go solicit it and ask for it. Also, there's people at the U.S. embassies and the commercial services that are willing to help. That's their job, to help. There's gold key services that you have to pay for, where the embassy commercial service staff will help you open some doors in Japan or the other markets. But the HiSTEP grants from DBET can help pay for some of that gold key service if you apply for it. It's too late now, but you could do it for next year, right? And the gold key service is available at most U.S. embassies, I mean, around the world where there's commercial officers. Okay. That's it for me. I'm around. Please ask me any questions now, but we can also do one-on-ones later. I'd like to thank again our guinea pigs, how nice it was for them to come up and help and share their experience with you.
Rob, I have one thing I wanted to add for social media, if I can.
Please.
One of the things that I do, I love social media, and I use it all the time. And I actually had not hired somebody, she was a friend of mine who does a lot of the promotion for Made in Hawaii Festival, so she does all into the Japanese market. So I met with her, and she was able to help me with some hashtags that were in Japanese. She asked me, what hashtags do I use? And I did, tell her which ones I use all the time. And I use that in my Instagram and my Facebook. So it's automatic, you put it on your keyboard. So if I put the word travel, it automatically puts travel, and then it puts the kanji in there automatically. Nice. So I was able to acquire a lot of people from Japan, a lot of followers and stuff that at one of the recent trunk shows had come by and said they saw me on Instagram. And another thing is last year when Jan was at we were doing the Hikarie in Shibuya, I actually paid for a Facebook ad, and I think that she had mentioned that somebody had come down because of my ad. I targeted just Japan, Japan, and actually had come down to the event. And I know that Nina, I called her the Japanese princess because our first Tokyo gift fair, she was next to me. She uses Amoeba, and everybody, they knew Angels by the Sea because of that website. So if you can utilize that website, Amoeba, or do your hashtags, that you use for your product in the language, it's really helpful. You get a lot of followers.
You have the type of product that's really great, perfect for Instagram and that sort of thing, because just a nice photo of your product gives so much mental image about what's going on there and the design behind it, and the whole product message is great, right? How about, do you guys use anything?
Excuse me?
Sarah, do you use any social media?
We've been really careful right now because we got blistered with that original social media situation. So we have a Facebook. But
you have the cream for those blisters. Right?
We do, we do. But it wakes you up a little bit. You realize we got to have this handled, So I love the idea of hashtags and doing it consistently. Yeah, it's great.
That's critical for social media. I strongly advise you get into social media, but you have to do it consistently. You don't have to do it every hour, but at least weekly or what have you, because if you go for a long time with your feed being kind of empty, people look at that and think, oh, that's weird. Are they all right? Is the company okay? So just, weekly is enough. That's great. Any other questions, please, from anybody?
With the social media, I have a social media company, and it's like life-changing. I don't do anything. I supply them with pictures, and it's very affordable for the Japanese market.
How do you, who is it? How do you do that?
I think the company is Pohaku, and that's all they do. So they have me
I
and
know
like
them.
30 or 40 other people, and they post every day for everyone.
Oh, that's good.
It's very, very affordable. You think you can't afford it, but it's very affordable considering the time it takes off of your hands.
Question for Angie, since you've been doing the Japanese trade shows
Yes.
and involved in it, what percentage of your sales is coming from Japan?
It's very, very minimal. But like my first year, so this year will be my third time going. My first year wasn't successful. I did get an agent. I did get an order, very, very small. I want to say it was not more than $2,000 an initial order. Last year was a little bit more successful, but I just got one account, and that's in the Guam area, who's consistently ordering on a monthly basis. But my percentage of my exporting is very, very small. So the key that I've learned from, Rob is one of my export mentor, as well as Neil and all of the other different trainings that I went to regarding exporting, it's really key for you to be there present year after year. It's the Japanese are all about building a relationship, and you have to they want to be able to see you 3 years. So I think this is our third year. This is going to be a good year. So we're hoping. But it's just, it's building that relationships.
How did you find that representative?
The agent?
Agent.
There was several different vendors had introduced me to one agent, and there was other people that would come by. So they already are dealing with different companies there in Hawaii and have that. They visit the island a lot, so they've come by, and there was a recommendation from another vendor there at the event. And you'll get a lot of them come to you when you're at the booth. There are distributors, or they're agents, and the key thing is really being, smart about checking on their references and so forth. So it can be kind of tricky because there's a lot of different people that will come to you. There's a lot of online stores that will come and want to sell your product, not only different buyers and stuff. Thank you.
Any more questions? You were so gracious to be here and help me. Can you plug your products a little, and how can people find Sky
Yes.
Dreams?
It's Sky Dreams LLC. So I'm on Facebook. I have a website, which is currently in the process of being bilingual. And you can find my products in all different boutiques all over in Waikiki. Angels by the Sea is a very good customer of mine. And so I do sell, again, travel-related products. So initially when I started was the Sky Dreams travel blanket that folds into a bag. But I found out that to export my tote bags and my clutches with our custom design is actually really, really doing well, taking off.
Great. And Sarah, how do we learn more about Honey Girl Organics?
Well, you can go to honeygirlorganics.com, and that's our U.S. side.
Okay.
But if you're in Australia and you want to buy in Australia, you just go to honeygirlorganics.com.au.
Great.
Yeah, it's
Are
good.
there online sales there?
There are, and actually there's a store at Ala Moana that actually sells also.
Okay. There was an online question about shipping and contacts for shippers. So I'll send that to them. But again, we have a close colleague here from UPS, and so if anybody wants that information, I'll gladly pass it along to you. That's one point of reference for you. There's obviously other shipping solutions, but UPS ships globally and has a good relationship with Japan So if you need that contact information, just let me know. With that, since there's no more questions, I'll close out this webinar. And again, feel free to come and ask me any questions in the back one-on-one. But thank you again, ladies. That was great. I loved it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.